Good morning, everyone. Yeah, smiling faces in the class today. I'm pleased today to be able to welcome to our forum's podium Craig Martin. Most of you know Craig. His talk today is on Beyond Beauty, Exploring the Wildflowers of the Jemez Mountains. Craig was born and raised in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and then he fled the East Coast as soon as it was practical. He has worked as a drill press operator, carpenter, middle school science teacher, state park naturalist, National Park Service ranger, freelance writer, and open space and trails manager before retiring in 2015. Since then, he and his wife, June, have explored the plants and lichens of the United States in their camper van, covering all of the lower 48 states, while Craig contributed 18,000 observations of 4,300 species to the online iNaturalist project. That's the name of it, iNaturalist. 18,000 observations. He's also a saxophone player and a member of our church's social justice committee. Who knows how many other sides there are to Craig Martin, but we're going to find out about some of that today. It's all yours, Craig.
Thanks, Tyler. Where did he get that one from? I don't remember writing that, the little bio thing. But it did acknowledge that June is now the family lichen expert. Where did all this start? I'm not exactly sure where I started with wildflowers. Probably way back when I was that park naturalist in the state of Delaware back in 1979 or somewhere around there. Anyway, once I got to the Jemez Mountains, I discovered something that I didn't think I would ever discover, which is spring in the east is wonderful. There are flowers everywhere, all 3 or 4 species. Here in the Jemez, it's very different. I could take you for a walk. In fact, if you join me next Monday night behind the golf course, I'll show you 50 species of wildflower that are still in bloom in the month of September. Okay, this is a special place. But I want to take you on this journey. What I've discovered, that's the pointer, okay, sorry, is that my journey into many things in my life all had the same path. It was, I call it now, the path to appreciation. First of all, you're struck by beauty. And then you start to notice the details. The beauty was easy, but then the details get a little bit more difficult. But in the details, you can find that you can make connections. So for my personal life journey, it was fly fishing, same pattern, birding, the same pattern, classical music and jazz, started out just listening, and then all of a sudden, there's patterns to this. I've noticed the details. And my experience in the last 6 months in joining this congregation as a Unitarian Universalist followed the same journey. So I want to take you on that. And this journey only took an hour, okay? The first thing is, Terry was up here, right here, saying, whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever your image of the holy, wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. I had never heard that in a church before, because the last experience I had in a church was when I was about 14 years old, and I said the wrong thing, and they said, please don't ever come back. So those words were the beauty. And then I noticed the details when we do the, I forget what it's called, but anyway, love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. Those words spoke to the next 40, 50 years of my life after they kicked me out of the first church. I said, the details of this church are what I want to follow. And then I found the connections, and it had music with it, which is really special to me. So the music, we just sang this. The way is long, let us go together. The way is difficult, let us help each other. The way is joyful, let us share it. That sold me. that this was the place that both you and I belonged. So that journey was a brief one. This one is a little bit harder. The Jemez Mountains has a wide range of habitats. And I call that, you can see that circle there. Oh, that's right, I can do this. The circle all around here, that's kind of what I consider the Jemez Mountains. So it extends a little bit out into the flatlands too. It doesn't go as well. In some cases, it goes to the Rio Grande, in White Rock Canyon in particular. But within that, we have found an incredible number of plant species, and I'm going to lead you on a journey so that you can notice some of the details. I mean, it's easy to go up the Water Canyon right now, and see, this is what you'll find. You'll find yellow everywhere. And what will it smell like? Well, it smells like the herb of the he-goat, if you can imagine that, okay? Some people like it, some people don't, but that's a plant called taper leaf that has a distinct odor that some people say, I'll never go into White Rock Canyon in September again, or they will. But the beauty is the easy part on this one. I mean, everybody loves flowers. And it's a pungent, yeah. You've probably experienced it, yes. The other thing that's easy about plants is that they come in a variety of colors, and all of these colors are something you find in the Jemez. And if you are, I'm not really good at this thing yet. Okay, I got it. There we go. There's the button. This one is a little, you probably never saw it around here. It's in that southern part of the Jemez. I call it the southern desert of the Jemez. It's down by San Ysidro. All of the others that are pictured there, you will find within 5 miles of where we're sitting right now. So it's, the colors make it easy to love this. If you look at some of the plants around here, you'll develop your own favorites, and I think we all have certain favorites that we share. The pasque flower is what we see, one of the first things in spring, and that one's easy because it's a spring flower, and you notice it when you're desperate for winter to be over. The other one is dotted gay feather, which is out there now, and just the color is so striking that you have to love that one. Others, people like Sacred Datura, the big white tube. If you go out to Bandelier and do the main loop trail, you'll see that all the time. If you go up into the meadows above the ski area in July, you'll find the Mariposa lily. And for some reason, everybody loves those red claret cacti. So the struck by beauty part of all this is pretty easy when it comes to flowers. But I want you to start thinking about how can you notice the details. The details of flowers are their shape, their patterns of shape or color. Maybe start looking at some of the tiny parts, like hairs, or we'll talk about more later. And the tiny details, what I'm going to call, look at the flower upside down. And think about how those plants are pollinated. And that's just because the BCD coordinator is here, so I just need to talk about that. Notice the details of shape. Here is a flower, the cross flower. And you can see why it's called the cross flower. It's got 4 petals, and they're all very narrow, and they're very separate, so it gets a nice name that's very descriptive. This flower, if you look at it, has 5 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this thing in the middle with all these sprays coming out. Those are called stamens, and they end in anthers. If you look at the other one here, you'll see it also has 5 petals, but it has a whole bunch of those stamens instead of just a few of them like the geranium does. And then here's one. If you look, you had to look at this one close. This one has 5 petals. You can't quite see them from the side view, but all of them are fused together and form a tube here that goes down into the flower. So you've got 4 different shapes there. There's many, many more. Some patterns of fused petals are this one, which is a penstemon, which everybody knows and loves. The bottom 3 lobes of the tube are separate, and then the top 2 are sort of separate but combined together also. This flower, the fern leaf lousewort, has all of its petals fused together, 2 of them down the bottom, and then there's 3 up at the top that you can't see because they're all fused together. Once you start noticing these shapes, you're going to learn a lot more about flowers. This is well, if you know this flower, this is a favorite. This is called elephant head, and here are 3 petals that are fused with a long nose that looks like an elephant's trunk, and then the 2 petals on the side look like the ears. Can you picture that? I don't know if the picture's good enough, but once you start looking for those patterns of shape, you're going to start learning how to identify wildflowers, and you'll learn that the details are important. Here are 4 examples of the rose family, and you can see their similarities. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Each of them has 5 petals, and each of them has a whole bunch of stamens. If I asked you to count those, you wouldn't want to, okay? Because there's just too many of them. But other families of plants in the Jemez have maybe only 5 of those stamens, maybe 10 of them, but the rose family always has too many that you don't want to count, okay? Oh. One of these days. The pea family is even, I don't know if it's easier to tell. It's easier to tell that it's in the pea family, but it's harder to tell where the 5 petals are. So here's 1 petal up on top. It's got 2 lobes, but it's actually 1 petal. It's called the banner. Then there's these 2 here on the sides that stick out like ears. Those are the wings. That makes 3 petals. Okay, I said there would be 5, right? And wrong button. Okay, let me shut them off. This is a common problem with Craig. I just want you to know. And then this one here is called the keel, and it's actually 2 petals that are fused together. So once you see that pattern is in different plants, you'll be able to identify all those parts. Here, this is bush vetchling, kind of a rare plant around here. Here's the banner. The wings are different color, so they're white on this one. And then you can see the keel underneath that's kind of hiding underneath there. With the big golden pea, the keel is way out there, and so you can see it, obviously. On the Missouri milk vetch, you've got a slight variation. The banner flower, or petal, is actually the dominant one. The wings, you can kind of see here on this one, and then the keel is kind of hidden underneath those wings, but you can still see it. One more, and that is one of my favorites, the rusty lupin, which is only found on sandbanks down along the Rio Grande around here. And it kind of looks like a comic face, doesn't it? You know, big eyes and a big nose. The big nose is the wings that are joined together like hands in a prayer. And then the banner is the thing with the big white spots on it. But they're all the same shape of flower. Once you notice that pattern of the shape of a flower, you can probably name the family that the flower is in, and that helps you appreciate the details of what you're seeing. There's some plants that have really unique shapes. This is the monk's hood, and you can kind of see why there's a hood here that has a point. But that's 2 petals combined together, and then underneath there's a couple of others. This is not a member of the pea family that has characteristics that are like that. Monk's hood is a high elevation plant. Here you'll see it up on Pajarito Mountain if you take the, I forget what it's called, the trail that's just around the base. Milkweed has kind of a special feature to it. The flower shape is very different. And because it's so different, I had to take one of, this is actually a Dorothy Hoare drawing that's in one of the books that we did. And you can see that it's an odd thing. These things here are not the petals. The petals are things that droop down. So here's the petals of this flower. These things that stick out that you see dominant in this flower are the are called the hoods. And then inside the hood, you have a horn. So there's all kinds of weird parts in this one, but every milkweed in the world has the same pattern. So if you see something that looks this weird, it's kind of called a crown shape. Then you know that you've got a member of the milkweeds. How do you do that? You got to look at the details. Okay, and then here's everybody's favorite. This one is the Colorado columbine. We have two columbines here. One's red, and then we have this one. These are the petals here, but the petals have these long tubes called spurs coming out of the back. Only columbines will do that. These things here that are around the outside are called sepals, and that's kind of the in a normal flower, that's what encloses the petals. But on this one, it's a dominant feature of the flower itself. So once you've got some basic patterns down, then it's time to start looking at the details of the actual flowers. We have to look at male and female parts. I hope this, I tried to word that the right way. That's these things here. Some of them, the ones that are on the outside of the center of the flower, are the ones that produce pollen, and they end in anthers, which are usually here I thought I had it down. Are usually the colored parts of the stamen, and then in the middle. And this one is hard to see, there is a style. So this one's kind of a normal flower. This is cliff bush that you'll see up in Los Alamos Canyon. But on this one, it's kind of a different story. This is the style. The style is long and ends in a cross. And when you look at that detail, you know that you've got a member of the evening primrose family, no matter where you are. The stamens are these things here, and instead of these little buttons that you see on the cliff bush, you see that they are long, elongated, but they're still making pollen, just like the other ones. So that's a unique pattern to the evening primrose family. Here, sometimes you can get those stamens to have color, blue. Blue stamens usually means that it's a member of the sorry, I had to think of the common name because I've learned how to speak Latin because botanical names are mostly Latin or Greek. So member of the Pulmonaceae, sorry, that's the only word I can think of. A phlox family, I know I get it. A phlox family has colorful anthers. And then the 4 o'clock family usually has a fused tube, 5 petals, and then this really long style, which this is the female part here, and this is the pollen receptor here. These yellow parts will make the pollen. So once you start looking at the details, you can learn enough to actually identify more plants than you think you know. Because when you can figure out what family it's in, you know what page to go in the book. The way I learned was every page through the book. And it was effective, I guess. But once I started realizing that there were patterns, I could start going to the right section of the book. And that's what I try to teach folks on wildflower walks, is how to recognize those patterns. Another detail that is really interesting if you have a hand lens or a microscope, the patterns of hairs that you'll find on plants. This one is just a woolly millfetch, and it's just kind of a generally hairy. You can kind of see those little hairs that are on there. They're just all over. But then there's some, like the hawkweed, that has straight hairs that kind of looks like, it looks like my face after about 4 days. There's just these little straight hairs coming out. But then others, these are star-shaped hairs, which are indicative of the mustard family. And a star-shaped hair, right in here, you can see that there's a central hair and then 5 or 6 other hairs that are attached to it that are spreading out in every different direction. When you see that, you know that you got a member of either the mustard family or the mallow family. So here, where are the spots? Okay? It looks like they're all on the big white petals, right? But if you look carefully on this one, you'll see that those spots are actually the anther at the end of the stamen that produces the illusion that the petal is spotted. And that is characters, especially that we just came back from the Northwest and found the same genus up there, and it was the same thing up there. It looks like the petals are spotted, but they're not. It's the anthers. Here on the spotted saxifrage, those spots are really on the petals. So, a casual glance at that, I don't want to embarrass June, but June would say, "Oh, look at that! It's a spotted saxifrage." But no. If you look at the details and figure out where the spots are, you'll notice that it's a different species. Okay, the sunflower family is kind of a unique thing because it's called the composite family because it's actually two different kinds of flowers all jammed together in a single head that looks like a single flower. This here has about 300 flowers on it, and they're all jammed in together. So what I did, and I'd actually never done this before, so thanks for the opportunity to do that. One of these things that you would call petals is actually called a ray flower, and here's one all by itself. It kind of has 3 lobes, so it kind of looks like a petal, but it's actually part of a whole flower. Here is the tube that runs down into the ovary, which will produce the seed. So right in here is the opening to that. So if you can picture it, well, I don't know, let's move on to the next one. This one's easier. This is all these things in the center of the flower. The ones along the outside here are open, like the one down here. So you can see that kind of looks like a flower, doesn't it? I mean, it's got 5 petal lobes, and it's got parts, male and female parts in the middle, in there. So that's what's going on here. This is a composite it's a composite flower that is all held inside this cup, which it's called the involucre, but you can just call it the cup that holds the flower head together. That's fine. I don't mind that. But that's what's going on. So this is the underside of the flower. And just because I had never done this before, I had to keep it going. Here is a single disc flower from the center part of the composite family. And you can see this down here resembles the seed that's going to come. If you want your yard to turn yellow in the fall like mine is right now, you can go out and collect these from the cowpen daisy that is all over town right now. Don't take the ones from my yard because I scattered them all over Los Alamos. Some places good, some places bad. Anyway, that's what the seeds look like. So here is notice the detail, flip the flower upside down. And here is a purple aster, which everybody seems to know. Okay, but is this one a purple aster? The color's subtly different, but if you showed me the top of that, and this happens on iNaturalist all the time, that people produce the picture from the top of the flower, and they call them all purple asters, and I can see why, because they all look very, very similar. But if you flip the flower upside down, here's what you see. Instead of that cup being a simple cup, on the purple aster, you see that cup is actually made up of little tiny leaflets. And all those leaflets are sort of bent, and they're all very sticky. So if you show me the bottom of that flower, I can tell you what species it is. If you show me the top of the flower, I won't identify it on iNaturalist for you. Here, this middle one is the smooth aster, and its little leaflets are just kind of all pressed up against the cup. And you'll notice that each of the leaflets are different lengths, so it's graduated. So if you show me these two, I can identify that one for you. And this one is a little harder because the differences are subtle here. This one has those spreading little leaflets, but they're not sticky. This one is I'm the world's leading authority on iNaturalist for identifying this one because it only grows between here and Taos. And people always call it, you guessed it, purple aster, so I can correct them, and I have more identifications than anyone in the world. Sorry, some people have small claims to fame. Okay, all right, what makes you sneeze? Okay, so everybody sees the chamisa and says, oh, there it is, I'm going to sneeze. I mean, this happens all the time on the local flower pages on Facebook and all. They say, oh, no, the chamisa's blooming in my yard, I'm going to start sneezing. Well, if you have big, colorful flowers like the chamisa bush, what you're doing is saying to the bugs or the bees, come and take some nectar from my flower. And, oh, by the way, you'll get some pollen stuck to your legs if you do that. And this guy's got lots of pollen on his legs. That's why his legs are yellow. So if you are a plant and you go to all the trouble to make a large, colorful flower, what you're doing is putting a lot of energy into attracting insects. So the insect is what carries the pollen from one plant to the other and then fertilizes that stigma at the end of the style. And from there, you produce seeds. So the thing is, these plants are blooming about the same time. This is an ambrosia or a bursage. Most people just call them ragweeds, okay? That flower isn't very showy. Here, you can't see the flowers, can you? Here's a flower head. It's one of those composites, and there's about, maybe 10 flowers in there, and you can see that they're all little tubes. Each one of those little tubes will produce maybe 1 million grains of pollen. The purpose of that pollen is to get caught in the wind and blow someplace else. So if you have allergies, that is the plant that is causing your allergies, not the chamisa. The chamisa is big and showy, and you see it. So you say, oh, that's what's causing my problem. If you live in the East, it was goldenrods. I grew up where I thought I was allergic to goldenrods. No, I was allergic to ragweeds. But they were the real culprit. So remember, when I even asked Dr. Hansinger, the allergist in town, about this, because he has a chart on his wall that has a hump for each of the dominant plants for each year. And the one in September says chamisa. And I said, Doc, I don't, as a botanist, I don't see that. He says, oh, somebody made that chart 15, 20 years ago and thought it was chamisa, but really it's the ragweed. So he convinced me that I have been not lying to people for the last 15 years as I've been telling them that. Thank you, Dr. Hansinger. Okay, why name plants? Well, I tried to get in here and get my real name tag for the church, but I couldn't get in. The reason why we wear name tags here and in other places is because you want to greet the person or the flower that you see by name, because it's just a polite thing to do. Plus, what that does is you'll notice where you normally see each person, and you get to know where to expect to see them, right? So you can't do that if you don't really have a name, because then you just say, where do I know that person from? But the name helps. And then it allows you to talk to other people about what you see. So a flower has names, and people say, well, can't you just appreciate the beauty? Well, if you start to notice those details, you want to know what you're seeing wherever you see it. So you want to connect this plant, this coda plant, I think there's a few growing out here, and the ones that are down in White Rock Canyon. So you learn how to name things. And names are confusing because people call the same plant by different names. But that's why we have those, you can see on that one, Phallosperma megapatomycium. Okay, what that means is, actually it means the Phallosperma of the Rio Grande in Latin, I believe. Okay, so let's make some connections. Here's what makes the Jemez Mountains special. It's the influence of 4 different regions coming together right here where we're sitting to make an incredible biodiversity. And it's the Great Basin, the Rocky Mountains, the Great Plains, and the Southern Deserts. We've traveled now in all those areas, and in those areas I can name half the plants that I see because they are found here also. Here's an example of one that's from the Rocky Mountains. Let me show you what we're doing here. Here's the plant, snowball saxifrage, and each of the red squares is a place where an iNaturalist observation has been reported for that plant. So you'll see down here, this is the Jemez. It's kind of an isolated area. It's way away from the main bulk of the Rocky Mountains where the plant is normally found. So it's drifted down here. It stayed down here after the Ice Age left the Jemez Mountains exposed again. And that's why we have those from the Rocky Mountains, because it was Ice Age things. This is one of my favorite plants around here, the orange skyflower. There's only a few places where you can find it in the Jemez. One of them is actually Kenyatta Bonita up there. But you can see we are right here at the extreme southern end of its range. The rest of it is in the Rocky Mountains. So it's easy to see the Rocky Mountain thing. This one is weird because look at where this bunchberry, and if you know what a dogwood looks like, this is related to dogwoods. This cluster here was the first one ever found in the Jemez this far down. And since then, it used to be that only I and Chick Keller were going out and finding weird plants in the Jemez, and I found this one over on South Mountain on the Valles Caldera. And since then, they've hired a botanist who actually outdoes me. He outdoes me a lot. But he's the one who's found more than one population of it. So it's just not a fluke that it's there. But you can see it goes up into the Rocky Mountains, but most of the place where you see this particular plant is in the East Coast. So that's my weirdest example. If you want an influence from the Great Basin, here is rosemary mint. It's found in New Mexico, only here. It's also found somewhere down in here. But this is a Great Basin plant that has found its way over here. If you go, I call it the northern foothills. If you go up towards Abiquiu, and on the south side of the highway, there's this big expanse of flatlands that gradually rise up into the Jemez. And there is a lot of plants that are only found there in the Jemez. The Great Basin influence is also shown with the sago lily, which you'll find in White Rock Canyon, but you can see that its distribution ends right around in here. So we have plants extending from the north and from the east, or from the west. This one, I had to look this one up to see where it was actually native to, and it turns out that it's a Great Basin species, or Great Plains species. These are the plains, you'll find it all over. But in New Mexico, it's only in that central kind of deserty area, and then in White Rock Canyon. Actually, this one extends all the way up. I've found it out by the shooting range also. Here's one of my favorites because there's the anomaly. This plant is actually found there. I found it over in the San Ysidro desert area, and how it got there, I have no idea. But it makes you wonder, okay, why don't we have it in here too? Well, maybe it's just because people don't recognize it. It's not an obvious plant. It's a dahlia, which is a prairie clover, if you know those. The purple prairie clover is the most common one that we have here. It's probably out in the garden because it's probably been planted. Southern deserts, this is Wooten's larkspur, and you can see that we are, where are we? We are at almost its northernmost extension. It goes up into Taos, but you can see that it follows kind of deserty areas. So this is only found in Los Alamos in White Rock Canyon. And just to get another example, I scratched my head and said, well, you find another plant that does this. This is slender goldenweed, and it definitely follows a deserty pattern because these are deserts. This is the Sonoran Desert where it's found, and then this is going up the Rio Grande Valley and ending up in Taos. So all of those areas coming together, the multi-regional influence creates biodiversity, and biodiversity is an important part of plant stuff. So here's my statistics for you. Plant species in North Dakota, 860, okay? If you go to Alaska, you get 1,300 species in the entire state, and we know how big that state is. Yeah, okay, I admit it's cold up there. Okay, plant species in the Jemez Mountains exceeds what you see in the state of Alaska. And of those 1,300 plant species, about 1,000 plus is found here. The story behind that one is once Dorothy Hord and Chick Keller were arguing about, well, we'll never hit 1,000 plant species in Los Alamos County. And Dorothy said, okay, I'll bet you a pizza. And unfortunately, Dorothy passed away before we got there, but we did have our pizza party in her honor after we hit 13. And the funny thing is, every year we add maybe 5 species to that. It's just because we're out there looking at stuff. So Beyond Beauty, if you want to learn more about this kind of thing, there's a couple of resources in town. There's the Jemez Mountain Herbarium at the Nature Center, which nobody knows about. It's a back room. It's kind of Chick's little cave. But in there is the dried remains of about 4,000 plants. And the reason, the only way you can really study a plant is if you have a dried sample of it. So they're all on sheets. They're all there for anybody to see. Chick is there on Thursday afternoons, and he will show you anything that you want to see. I go there all the time to check on things that I see around town and say, do I know that? And I'll go there and look. Guided wildflower walks from Peak are each month from spring to fall, and Chick and I alternate those. The next walk is next Monday, September 22nd. That'll be me. And I owe Chick on this one because he went out and found, 55 species along the trail behind the golf course this week. So I just said, well, I don't have to go scouting. I'll just use that one. So we'll do that one. I will go out and scout to make sure I know what's there. But that is probably the most interesting way to learn more plants, is because you actually get to see them and you get to ask questions if you want. And it starts from Peak. We meet there, and you have to sign up. But it's easy. And there's a 25-person limit. I've had as many as 50 on a hike with me, so they don't count very well or something. All right, the other way you can do this, and I just became a iNaturalist ambassador. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but that's why I wear the T-shirt and the hat all the time. If iNaturalist is an online app where you can take a picture with your phone of something that you see in the wild and upload it, and you'll get a suggestion of what it is. Sometimes it's the right suggestion. Around here, maybe 75% of the time it's right. But the advantage is everybody else in the world can see that, everybody who's interested in plants. And if you're in Los Alamos County, there's a guarantee that I will see it. And I will tell you, are you right or are you wrong? And I'm making suggestions on, if you misidentify it, here's where you missed it. But anyway, if you want to learn how to use that, find where I am, and I'll certainly teach you. But it's a really good learning tool. That's why I have 18,000, still 18,000 observations from all over the country. But the advantage is I don't know the plants in the Pacific Northwest. If I take a guess, somebody will tell me I'm wrong, or somebody will tell me I'm right, which I really appreciate. So that's it. Are there any questions on plants of the Jemez or the path to appreciation?
Okay, let's see what good questions we've got here.
Actually, this is a personal question we were trying to figure out for the sunflowers that come up all the time, and people wanting the seeds. Which part of the seeds, if they want part of this plant for the next year?
So seeds are almost always in that disc.
That's what
right.
I thought, yeah.
And what I do is if they come out easily in my hand, then they're about ready to do it. So I'll take those. Now, most of those have to get winterized. So either you take them and put them in your freezer, or I just scatter them around
Oh,
as soon as I get
You
them.
can scatter them around outside or put them in the freezer.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
And it depends on what species and what its requirements are.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-oh, here it comes. Oh, yeah. I got ringers in the
Remind
audience
everybody
here.
who has a question, hold the microphone pretty close to your mouth, kind of straight in front of you. That works best.
How do you pronounce Gilia? Soft or hard?
Gil was is that hard? Gilia?
Gilia?
Yeah, that's how I say it.
Okay, it's
But-
not Gilia then. Which is,
Okay, as a self-taught botanist, I have never heard these words spoken by other people. So I have my own way of saying everything, which is rarely the correct way, is what I've learned. Britton, what you got?
I just wanted to add a brief thing to the sowing
Oh.
seeds. If you want to sow native seeds in your yard, now is a good time to do it. You want them in the ground, like Craig said, they like winter. So sowing seeds now and expecting them to germinate in the spring is actually a really good way to do it. A lot of our native plants need that stratification, so they won't germinate well if you wait till the spring to sow them.
And that cowpen daisy that is so easy to spread around, that isn't, in my yard at least, it's not ready to drop its seeds yet, so you might have to wait a little while. But if you see big patches of that around town, you know who to blame.
I got it.
Go.
I got it first. So I want to say something about the time to save the seeds. Okay, if you save it too early, they're not ripe. If you wait too long, the birds ate them. So what I wait is until the petals stop drooping. That means it's finished pollinating, and I put a bag around it so the birds won't eat it. I'll get all the seeds.
And the beauty of the cowpen daisy is I don't think the birds like the seeds because that whole flower smells. I often wonder if my neighbors are mad at me because the odor drifts over to their yard. But, to me, it's a pleasant odor, but not to everybody, I guess.
I'm wondering how to sow the seeds. Like, is it better to put mulch on the ground or to look for bare soil?
Turn around and ask. Come on. That's not my specialty.
And then also, why are penstemons so fickle? One year they'll bloom beautifully, and the next year they don't come back.
That one I can take. Okay, these subtle patterns of rainfall that we have around here favor different species of plants. And they all react they're in their own way, whatever species it is. So certain penstemons like heavy spring rains and then dry period, and others like dry springs and heavy rains in the summer. So they all have their own particular interests in the rainfall pattern.
So I think for the wildflower seeds, I sometimes take my grandchildren out and they collect wildflower seeds, and we put it in a jar, and then we put dry sand and shake it all up. After the first snowfall, I sprinkle them, and the sand helps the seed fall into the snow. And then instead of, if you just scatter it on a day that's windy, the birds will eat it and it will go fly away. So this way it keeps them to help them germinate better. Any sand, you can steal from the county. There's a big pile of sand.
Oh, the things you learn when you're in this church. Yeah, that's it. Well, Skip.
Why is it? Hello?
Yes.
Why is it that it seems like all the fall flowers stink?
Because, okay, this is just a crazy thing that pops into my head. It's because it's bird migration season, right? And they don't want all of their seeds to be eaten. I mean, what birds do is they eat the seed and they carry it someplace else and drop it. So that's a good thing. But a lot of plants just want to be right where they are. I mean, if you look at those cowpen daisies, once you get one, the next year you've got 500. So that's what that plant has evolved to do.
I'd like to know more detail if there is some about what you were saying about the 5 zones that all sort of come together here. I think about, rain differences, about altitude, sunlight, just is there more you could sort of add about how this diversity sort of historically occurred over the eons?
So remember that we didn't have glaciers in the Jemez, but we had snowfields. I mean, it was probably extending this far down when the ice age was here. When that went away, when the ice melted, some plants moved in from the north, some plants moved in from the east, some from the west. Depends on the elevation range. So let's take, for example, those Great Plains species that I showed. Where you find those are around the perimeter of the Jemez in White Rock Canyon down in the south. The Rocky Mountain species, you'll only find them up here at the higher elevations. So because of the elevation range here, and because those other biomes were so close to where we are, that's what allowed us to become a biodiversity mecca. And I'm still working on it. Yeah, okay, yeah. Same idea. Refugia and microclimates is what I'm hearing. Gina. Yeah, vertical mile of diversity. I forgot that one. Yes. Thank you, Sue, for codifying that one. Tina, what you got?
Yeah, I'm very new to learning all of these things, so thank you. This is awesome. And now I want to join all of the hikes. But how many flowers are medicinal in the Jemez Mountains? Do you know that?
My experience is that almost every plant has some kind of medicinal use. The reason to avoid that when you're speaking in public is because you don't want people to get in trouble.
Right.
So there are plenty of Facebook opportunities to find out those kinds of things. I'm working on a Frijoles Canyon specific medicinal thing, so I can do that for National Public Lands Day. That will be specific to the plants that the ancestral Pueblans used down in the canyon there. But yeah, everything's got something to offer. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, on hikes, it's don't eat the vegetation.
Right, yeah, you have to do that to clear the legal bounds, yes.
Yes, there are beneficial effects and side effects and very dangerous side effects.
Yes.
Speaking as a doctor, yes. Any other questions, comments? As you know, we record these, and so we want to be able to hear everybody's comments.
So could you show one of your very early opening slides, Craig? You had a bunch of wildflowers, and there's one I see all the time. It's a bright blue, almost purple, little tiny thing that reminds me of an orchid, and I've never known what it is.
We're getting there.
Yeah, it's one
I know what slide you mean. There.
Bird bill.
Bird bill.
Oh.
So Rebecca's looking at this thing down in here. It's bird bill dayflower. It's one of those flowers that'll bloom once in the morning and then it fades later. It's the reason it's called bird bill is because this thing underneath it here. Maybe that's a leaf. Let's try this one. I didn't put a side view, but it's got this big, long nose that sticks out from it. It didn't appear after the Cerro Grande fire, but it became more dominant because it likes open areas. So I never saw that with species until the first fire happened, and then it was everywhere. Bird bill dayflower. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Skyrocket is also known as scarlet gilia. Or I used to call it desert trumpet until I found it at Crater Lake in Oregon, which is definitely not a desert. So it's a species that has a far greater range than I imagined. So now I'm trying to call it skyrocket. People have different names for different plants. Most of the time, it's okay if you call it skyrocket or scarlet gilia, but then there are certain very different plants that have the same name, and that's why we invented botanical names, so that we can know what we're talking about. Anything else? Hey, thanks for the opportunity.
Craig,
Always
this is
happy
great.
to talk about this kind of thing. Maybe next year in the spring, we'll go for a walk. How's that sound? Okay.
Thank you, thank
All right,
you.
thanks.
We have, while you're here, I'll mention that we have forums planned already for October and November. In October, we'll be hearing about Moving Arts Espanola, which has an incredible program that hundreds of kids participate in. And in November, we're going to have a talk on affordable housing by Stephanie Nakla, who knows a ton about that. So join us.